You are listening to the Barry Long audio, Nothing Arising is Life Itself, formerly titled Gold Coast Talk, June 1993. For more information, visit www.barrylong.org.
Greetings and welcome to the Course in Being on the Gold Coast this June 93. It's 10 weeks since I was with you last at this, my headquarters where I live, in this very beautiful and pleasant place, which I can state with authority, for since you saw me I've been to several places in this world, and this is indeed a fine and beautiful place to live. In my Origins book, written about 13 years ago, I said that I had realized that I was surrogate for the people whom I teach and serve. In all my entry into the profundity of me, I am only surrogate, meaning that I am here to report back to the people what I find. And that is what I am doing. And so briefly, I will tell you where I've been these last 10 weeks. Then after that I will tell you some subjects that I'm going to talk about today, again as a result of this journey into me that everybody here, including the speaker, is on. So since I saw you, I have been to Seattle, up in Washington, the state next to the Canadian border, where I spoke to the people, for in all these places I speak to the people, where you will always find me. Down to Santa Fe, in New Mexico, up to Chicago in Illinois on the Great Lakes, across to Cleveland in Ohio, across to New York City, down to Florida, Sarasota on the Gulf of Mexico, and finally over to Jamaica, where I spoke to my first all-black audience. A great privilege. But it is good to be, quote, home, unquote, for these travels are intensive. I've now visited nearly 40 cities in about 13 countries, and in August I shall be off again to Europe this time, and up into the Baltic states and into Russia. The reason for all this extensive travel, which I have been on now for the last 12 months, and which will continue with the same intensity by the look of it until the end of 94, is that I should symbolically cover the psyche, the earth, speaking to the people on as wide a basis as possible, because to me the earth, the globe, represents the human psyche, of which we are all individual cells. And the more I symbolically speak to the psyche in its various places, its various countries, which all have a great psychic significance, the more I penetrate the human psyche. For I say to you that each one of you sitting in this chair listening to these words, all sitting in a chair at home listening to these words, each of you is a porthole, a window into the miracle and the magic of the human psyche. The difficulty is, the only difficulty on earth, is that just inside that window, that porthole that is listening now, is a place called the subconscious. The subconscious is another word where I come from, for the self. the self is a fearing, doubting, emotional, impatient thing. And it is just inside the window. So before I, who am listening to these words, can enter into the wonder of the human psyche, which is what I call me, I have to pass through myself. And myself consisting of all the pains and emotional wounds that I have had since I was born. My tendency is, until I have realized sufficient of the wonder of the psyche underneath, my tendency is to believe in myself and therefore to hold on to myself, which is to hold on to my pain, to hold on to my doubt, my guilt, my fear, my resentment, my jealousies. So much so that I will even fight almost unto the death for myself, when I tell you that myself is the only enemy on earth and the only guardian to the beauty of the human psyche within. So it serves two purposes, does myself. First, it ensures, as the guardian of the threshold, that I, who am the perception looking out of those eyes now at the speaker, it ensures that I am pure enough in my perception to first of all face myself. Myself, as I have described it, it is a pretty horrible thing to face. You just imagine it. You have seen your guilt. You have seen your resentment at various times. You have seen your doubts and your fears. You have seen your jealousies. Imagine what it is like to face them all together. That conglomerate of negativity, that negative emotion. That is myself. And unless I am pure enough to see through, first of all, face myself, these emotions, this conglomerate, unless I am first able to face myself, and through the courage of living the spiritual or divine life, to see through myself, I cannot enter what Jesus, the man who was a master, would have said is the kingdom of heaven. So myself ensures that I must be strong enough and courageous enough and still enough and right enough to pass through myself, through the gate, to enter in to the wonder and magic of the human psyche, which I call me, inside that body listening to these words. At the same time, myself is the greatest resistance. It continuously, while I believe in it, while I worship it and hold on to it, it continuously erupts. And although I have all the best intentions to not be emotional, if I have not purified my perception, myself rises up, and with all the best intentions I have to be still, to find the peace and wonder inside my body, which I call me, I cannot. For myself says, no, you cannot pass unless you pass through me. Now, is this true in your experience, man and woman, listening to these words? Yes, it is it not? For it is the truth. It doesn't matter what master you follow. It is the truth in your experience, for I am with you, the people. Practically, in practice, I am with thee. So you must pass through yourself. And that is what the spiritual or divine life is. The giving up of my negativity, the giving up, the doing the impossible, the giving up of myself. When all the teachers have told me and the masters have told me, you must be yourself. You must be your higher self. And I come along and tell you, there is no higher self. All self is ignorance. All self is the only problem. Now, some of the subjects that I trust I will reach today in our talk and presence is, I shall talk about the mystic cross. I shall talk about there is no experience in truth. I shall talk about the victim, will and willing, woman's change of life, what it means. A penal servitude is spelt with an I. What is best. And Beauty and the Beast. Before we begin the talks, though, it is vital that each of us go inside this body into the place that I call me. This is essential to finding God or peace or freedom. Without the entry into me and the realization, the increasing realization of what it means, I cannot find a truth. The other, external necessity is, as you know, getting your life right outside. But this comes first. So let us do it. Now, first of all, breathe out now. Don't breathe in. Right out, and then breathe in to into the diaphragm or the belly and release 3 or 4 times. And enjoy the breath. Keep the corners of the lips up, because when you're enjoying anything, the corners of the lips tend to rise in enjoyment, which I call enjoyment, a move towards union. So be easy, be still. And now what I am going to use in that body as I look inside or go inside, I'm going to use my attention, which I can identify now as what is looking out of my eyes at the speaker. That is my attention, or my perception, my attention. So what I do now, I'm going to use that facility which allows me to see anything at all, to see my children, my mother, my father, the flowers, the whole world. I need to use what is looking out of my eyes or out of my ears. This is my intelligence, my perception, or my attention. This reveals the truth. For how else could I see the world around me if I didn't use that attention that's in my eyes, my ears, my teeth, my tongue, and all my senses? The one intelligence in all those senses is what I use as my attention. So that reveals the truth of existence. So let us find the truth of non-existence. I use the same faculty to do that too. So close the eyes and with the attention look inside the body at the place that I would call me. Now me in the first instance, is where I feel. I feel hungry. That's a pretty crude demonstration. I feel joy. I feel love. Where do I feel this? I feel it in me. So please, I ask you now, using the attention, using the clarity that looks out of the ears and eyes, but gathering it all together, I ask you to look into me and see what you see. What do I see? I must only report back what I see, not what I imagine, not what I think, not my opinion. I must look with clarity and report back the truth that I see. What do I see when I look into me with my intelligent perception? The answer is, I see nothing. Or, I see blackness, or the dark, or the black. And that is the truth. There is nothing in me. There is nothing in the place of peace and stillness. So I am absolutely right when I report back, I see nothing. But then what I have to watch is that my mind, which is the cause of all unhappiness, my human mind is going to say, there's nothing here. And so you can say to the mind, you're dead right. So stop making silly comments. For he said, there is nothing here, and I see there is nothing, and that is the truth, without my silly mind, little sir, echoing and saying the obvious. So in my experience, there is nothing here. That is the truth. And the question is, how long can I, the master of this body, the intelligence of this body, the perception of this body, how long can I look into me, into nothing, and see nothing, and therefore be nothing? Let us try it. I shall be silent now, while you see how long I can look into this nothing, into this blackness, into this stillness, and be nothing, and see nothing. Now I ask you, please, still staying where I am, looking into nothing, being nothing, open the eyes and enter the place where there is everything, the external world. But continue to look and be in that place of nothing, for that is your right. That is where you come from. Out of that place of nothing to become something, as you just did then. Now the question is, how long was I able in that body to continue to look into nothing? I shall ask this gentleman here. Were you able to look into nothing? Very short time. What happened? The mind takes over. What did the mind do? The mind gave pictures and thoughts. Now I've said to you that the only enemy on earth is the human mind. So, if we took that gentleman's experience, and he was able to look into nothing, and be nothing, the only thing that disturbed it was the maker of something, the human mind. And so onto that place of peace, it could not resist putting something, thoughts and pictures. And of course, as it puts thoughts and pictures, something onto nothing, the nothing, the purity of the nothing, disappears. And my perception, my intelligence, then gets distracted and follows a line of thought or images or pictures that is called thinking. And I am seduced away from the place of peace, my rightful home, out of which I came from and out of which everybody in this room is endeavoring to return to. It is the restlessness of the human mind which always invents something that cannot stand the peace and wonder of the human psyche, which is inside that body, represented by nothing. But is it nothing, that purity, or if I call it me, the most intimate and tenderest place in that body? Is it really nothing? Of course it's not. But it appears to be nothing. It is me. So you see, the mind is the field or the agency, the intellectual agency of the self. The self, just inside the body, just inside the porthole where you were looking, is all my unhappiness that I have had since I was born, recorded as emotion. And although it is not very deep, it is indeed a very, very concrete stuff. It's called time or past, and there is nothing more concrete, more resistant than time or past. And out of that ground of time and past, that emotional substance, arises an egoic field which then thinks about the past, because it rises out of the ground of the past. What else has it got to think about? And as the past always consists of unhappiness, except for those brief moments when I think I can think about something good, it will soon turn to a thought about my problems and unhappiness. And my mind, even if I think of something good, will put pictures of the good, the imagined good, on the presence of the right and only good, stillness and silence. Now, which ground are you going to give your ego? You see what's looking out of your eyes? That is the beautiful, glorious ego. You see what's looking out of your ears? The ego. Reporting, ready to report at any moment any sound that might suggest a threat to your physical survival. The same within your tongue. Ah, what a wonderful entity is the tongue, filled with the glorious ego. always searching round the mouth for anything that is out of place. You ever cracked a tooth or lost a tooth? What does the ego do? Investigates its chamber, the ego of the tongue, finding out if there's anything wrong, if there's anything to do, getting used to it again. Because it is in the dark, it doesn't have eyes, it has feeling. And it searches round the mouth, getting used to its chamber to see that everything's all right again, to protect it as much as possible from anything incoming that might damage the organism. And then the touch feeling of the skin, the ego, the beautiful ego poised like a wonderful burglar alarm. The ever-silent, ever-present human burglar alarm is the glorious, wonderful ego protecting the survival of my organism. Very silent, not doing anything, but just being. Only alert for anything, any smell, any extra heat that might suggest threat to the physical survival of my organism, my body. That is the wonderful, glorious ego, the gift of God, which is God itself, the nothing, which is my intelligence, my perception. So let's forget this stupidity of the ego trip. The ego is a beautiful thing. Only it's beautiful when it is connected with the ground of my organism, my wonderful body. It is pure, the ego is pure when it protects the survival of my body. It doesn't want any more. When the body is fed, when the body is breathing, when the body is healthy, the ego, like the burglar alarm, is absolutely still, silent. No problem. And then I can appreciate the wonder of the earth and all my senses, because my ego is untroubled. But what if I give my ego the ground of my subconscious as its body? What if I keep thinking about all my problems and my unhappiness, my resentments, my guilt, my impatience, my wanting, my trying? If I give my ego that ground, what do you think happens to the ego? The ego is nothing. It will become anything that I give it the ground of. And as this is an unnatural, unhappy ground, the ego then troubles me and presents pictures from my unhappiness onto the beautiful clarity of my natural body. Every one of you, every single one of you loves to be simple, loves to be your beautiful body, loves to just be utterly and completely one with your organism, to smell, to see, to hear the earth and the people, to be easy in this body. Every one of you delights in that. What happens? Because I have been taught to think and dwell and indulge my ego in the ground of my own unhappiness and my problems, because I'm always acknowledging all my problems, my sad, sad story. The ego, like the genie, does precisely what it's told. It then throws up pictures that lead to me being unhappy and emotional. So come on. This moment now, while I speak to you, make contact with my beautiful body there listening to these words. Come on. It is a beautiful body. It is made by God, made by life like the flowers and the trees. It is a beautiful thing. And immediately as I speak now, I can make contact with it. Then the ego is in its rightful place, has its rightful ground. And then I am not troubled. For I am not trying to be anything anymore. I am just what I am. Not what I think I am. Not what I want to be. I am what I am. And that's all right, isn't it? Look, you're sitting on the chair. You're listening to the truth of your own experience. Unless you think about the past, you haven't got a problem in the world. Is that the truth? Unless you think about the last moment, you haven't got a problem in the world. Now, don't think because I said think about the last moment, will you? But we have been taught to think not just about the last moment, but about yesterday and last week. And as soon as you think, it will always drive you back to the pressure of the emotion, the unhappiness, the fundamental unhappiness that is in yourself. Now, I want to go inside again. So please, breathe out again, and then breathe into the belly or the diaphragm 3 or 4 times, relaxing, enjoying the breath. Come on, that's the egoic breath, you know, the right breath. You're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to realize anything. We're not trying to bring about some state or condition. We're just breathing. Oh, it's so nice just to breathe. So enjoy it. For when I enjoy something, I am more conscious. Right. Now close the eyes. And this time I'm going to ask you to use the second mode of my intelligence, which is my feeling. I'm asking first of all to look into me and nothing and see the black. And then to use the second mode of my intelligence, which is feeling. For I also perceive by feeling, don't I? So now I ask you, do I feel the good in my body, my organism? Of course I do. It is so immediately present. It is my body, my organism. It is my heart that's beating, if I have a heart. It is my organism that is operating, functioning beautifully. No matter how old I am, my body is operating beautifully. Can I feel? Do I just feel the simplicity of this operation which is me? The totality of just being me inside my body, where it is so good, this well-being, this rightness. Do I feel that now? It has no thought in it, for it is absolutely immediate. Nowness, every momentness. There it is every moment. The right, the good, the new, the true. Every moment. Me. The rightness of my being in this body. Don't leave me. Stay with me. Stay with me. It's very simple, very easy, very present. There it is. Feel the well-being in me. It's there every moment. Don't put any pictures on it. Don't think about it, just be it. Now stay easy. Stay with me. Don't think. Come on, stay with me. Stay here. Stay here. This is an act of consciousness. This is consciousness. I am conscious. I am conscious of me, which is nothing, and yet it is not nothing, for it is me. Most intimate, most tender, most sweet, most right place. The nothing that is everything, that is nothing. Stay with me. Come on, come back. Don't think. Look into the black. Feel into the black. The feeling disappears and you end up no feeling, nothing. Just the knowledge, which has no knowing, no thought. This is right. This is good, without reflection. This is being. Do not allow your mind to doubt it, to comment on it in any way whatever. For there is no comment here. It is just being. Do not doubt. This is it. Now, still feeling nothing, which is the feeling of being, which is being. Still being conscious, still conscious being, where there is nothing. I ask you now to open the eyes and enter the world of everything, while I tell you what has been happening and what happened then. Now, inside of me, where I have just been, or where I am being now, that is consciousness. There is no consciousness out here where you are looking out with your eyes now. There is no consciousness out here. Out here, everything is dependent on awareness. And consciousness is not awareness. Consciousness is indeed behind awareness. There could be no awareness without consciousness. But the human race confuses awareness with consciousness. And they are worlds apart. For awareness is dependent on the senses. If I take away all my senses, it necessarily follows that I then will be approaching consciousness. There's only one difficulty. What about myself? You will notice that myself is not in this world of awareness out here, is it? Where is myself? I can't see it. Where is the troublemaker? There's nothing wrong with this body, is there? This body listening to these words? Not one single thing wrong with it. It just wants to be at ease, to be fulfilled, to enjoy being what it is. I don't see any self out here. No. Because the self is just inside of the body, isn't it? In a psychic place. Just inside. It is a psychic entity. A spook. A haunting thing. Haunting in the sense of spooky. Appearing out of the dark to frighten me with impatience, guilt, to terrorize me with worry. That is inside. So if I lose all my senses, which means if I lose my body, because my senses make my body, don't they? What will happen? Something will still be stuck with myself. There will be no body, but there will be myself. I'm asking you to be my body, the body listening to these words, and to give up myself, so that when the time comes to disappear, to vanish, I vanish completely and don't leave my stinking self behind for somebody else to deal with. Because existence is only the past repeating itself. And if I use the word self for past and past for self, which I can do, it is only myself repeating itself. And as the self is unhappy, it's always going to repeat unhappiness upon the face of this earth. Can I make a special contribution towards this divine psyche of the human race of which I am a cell, and get rid of myself for the sake of the good of the earth? Well, isn't that the divine life or the spiritual life? Explained in very simple terms. Are you not haunted by yourself, by this psychological spook and entity? That even when you want to, you want with your body to do something that is sweet or nice or speak or love or make love beautifully, something comes into it sooner or later. And although the best of intentions are there, it goes awry. Something spoils it. What is that? It is myself. Whereas if I am just my body, just me, I walk down the street and I am pleased to be alive. Then I have no self. The thing is to reach this place as an uninterrupted state. And it is possible. And the first way to start doing that is by continuing to practice going into me, as we have just done. The other essential reciprocal of that is to get my life right externally, out here in the world of awareness. Because if the world of awareness is not right for me, I will be made more and more emotional. And that will push the buttons in my old unhappiness, the past inside of me. And I will not be able to have my perception, my intelligence travel down into me in peace. I will always be stopped by the guardian of the threshold, myself, which will say, what about me? And of course me is not myself at all. Myself is always claiming to be me. But it is not. Because myself is always wants to get something. Whereas when I am me, I give. It is the nature of me to give. Check this in your own experience, please, because this is part of going into me. It is the nature of me inside that body listening to these words to give. Do you not enjoy giving love, right love? Do you not enjoy giving to another? Of course you do. Do you not enjoy giving not just to your children, but as much as you enjoy that, giving whenever you can give? Do you not enjoy it? Of course you do. Because that is your nature to give. Do you not, as a woman, enjoy to give to man? Of course. It is your fondest desire is to give. That's from me. And as man, do you not want to give to your love, to woman? Of course you do. You can't help it because that is your nature to give. The self wants to take, wants to get. What's in it for me, says the self, posing as me. Now, I was going to talk about first the mystic cross. This is not the mystic cross that's between the heart line and the headline in the hand that I'm going to talk about. I was going to talk about more of the mystic cross, which is the basis of the spiritual life. And when I was writing my first book in India, many years ago, I had the sudden picture of the cover, what the cover should have on it. And it was a cross from one corner of the cover to the other. Across from one diagonal, from one corner to the other, from both diagonals. Just a cross. That book never got published. It had to be rewritten. It was really a journey of discovery, really, as I was getting my teaching together from within me, and bringing it into existence, first of all. into the mentality, into the mind, then onto paper. And then, as we all know, things usually have to be refined and made more right. And so the book was rewritten. But that's always stayed with me, this cross. And I'd like to tell you how it relates to your life. The bottom triangle of the cross, where it goes up to the apex, represents the existential outer external life. And the idea is that I am actually travelling up, each of us is actually travelling up this pyramid-like triangle towards the point where it meets the other triangle inverted on top of it. So this side is existence. Eventually, I have to pass through the point where the two triangles meet. This is almost impossible because it's so fine a crossing that there's no hole there. Nothing. And that is the spiritual life. I have to reduce myself, which down the bottom of the bottom triangle represents myself that I gather. I gather myself, which is my unhappiness, my doubts, my fears, my jealousies, my negativity, all my negative emotions. I gather those while I gather experience. And the days of my years and the years of my days are the gradual travel up towards this point, where the two lines cross. And what happens there? You will notice that this bottom triangle is a fixed frame. It's not going anywhere except to the top, the apex. There it ends. But if I look where the lines cross at the top triangle, I will notice that it is not a fixed frame, that the two lines go out infinitely, forever, always widening, vaster and vaster. And that is what the life in me is represented by. The vastness of a life that cannot be described or explained. It is, however, apprehended in everybody here that there is something greater, something vaster beyond myself. So the bottom triangle represents the struggle of myself to overcome myself. And as I do that, I get thinner and thinner, in the sense I get more spaceful, more space in me, less matter, less fear, less negativity, less guilt, less jealousy, less need to get. I start to lose myself. Often felt as a negativity by people. I'm losing my identity, for instance, is what they say. Or, I'm spaced out. I don't know what to do. I feel I'm just expanding into nothing. I'm losing everything, my personality, I'm losing everything. But that's the way it goes. And yet you've got to hold it together. You have to have the ego strong enough in me to be able, in its intelligence, to hold it together, to hold to the knowledge, this is right. As I feel I'm losing my identity, this is right. I must not panic, because I know that I must lose my attachment to my identity as someone or something. Don't worry. Your body will not disappear. It will be there. I will always return to my body. No matter what happens to me, I will always return to my body. until the moment of my death. So you will not lose your body. No matter how much you lose your identity, you will come back to what God made as your identity, your natural body. But there's nothing in there. Can you stand it that there is nothing in my body? Well, you remember, since we started this meeting today, I have been saying there's nothing in there. Can you stand it? Nothing changes, does it? The body's still there. Can you stand to be nothing? Now, each of you is well along the way to the apex of this triangle. In fact, many of you have already passed through the cross into the other triangle of infinite expansion of space. But then yourself pulls you back, because that's where the guardian of the threshold is. I cannot cross through this uninterruptedly until I am fine enough to just go through, until myself is reduced sufficiently, my attachment to myself. And that's what you are doing. And you will have gone through into that infinite vastness, and you will have experienced it. You will have perceptions of it. Because it's not just a mechanical thing where this moves over there and that's done. It's not like that. You move into it, and then you come back to it. It's a bit like the ladies or the men who are dying and travel down the tunnel of death, and they're going towards the white light at the end of the tunnel. A frequent experience. And they suddenly think, yes, I'm dying, and if I go like this, I will die and I won't be able to come back. And they suddenly think of their children or something they've got to do. And that thought of self brings them back. It is not time for them to die, for they must come back, pulled back by their self. The guardian will not let them go towards the white light of nothing. So the self pulls us back. But each of you has this knowledge of this infinite vastness. And yet, as although you know how beautiful it is and how right and still it is, the self is afraid of it. For it means the end of attachment to myself. So that I afraid flee of myself. I don't have to kill myself. Nothing like that is necessary. I just have to detach myself, detach from myself. For it is my attachment to myself, to my identity, the holding on, the clinging. That's the problem, not myself. For myself is purely my experience, in my awareness, and there's nothing wrong with my experience. When I attach myself to it, I get emotional. Because I'm not supposed to be attached to anything, for I'm nothing. If I attach to something, I get emotional. So you are in a process of detachment. As you pass through this, and another extraordinary thing is that within less than 10 hours, you will pass into the place of nothing, into the place of peace. In less than 10 hours, you will go in to deep, dreamless sleep. And that is the place of infinite freedom, where there are no burdens and no thoughts, no dreams, no wanting, no trying. And you are never more at rest or at peace than there. Never less burdened. And you never welcome anything as much has that place. So you have nothing to fear. It's just the self that is something that is afraid of nothing, such as deep, dreamless sleep, if it ever has to face it in the world of awareness when I am awake. Okay? So the mystic cross is something that everybody has. You come up from the triangle, the bottom triangle, from yourself, gradually detaching from yourself. Your intelligence gradually detaches from this limited self. And you pass through the crossing into an infinite place while you're alive, not waiting for death, but doing it while you're alive. And that, of course, is why you are here this day, because you are doing it. The other matter that I was going to speak about is there is no experience in truth. All experience is related to the senses. There is always a subject, I who am seeing the flowers, and an object, the flowers. And so I can say I'm experiencing seeing the flowers. Same with hearing, same with tasting. They're all experiences. Now, experience is the limit of the experience of the human mind. For instance, the human mind cannot register as an experience some of the sounds that we're told by the scientists that the insects and birds can hear. So there's no experience, because there's no sense of that. So all experience is to do with this externalized existence awareness. And there's always a gap in the experience. Experience always consists of the subject here seeing the flowers, and there's a gap or distance between me and the flowers. So there's time or distance between us. So there's always distance from the beloved in existence. We say the flowers are the beloved, but let's say the beloved is a man or a woman, which is the first example of the true beloved, is a man or woman. So in existence, I'm always separate from the beloved, because the experience of the beloved as a man or woman is an experience. That means I'll always be separate from her or him. This is terrible. This is absolutely frustrating and tragic, because there can be no union in this existence, in this awareness. Man and woman can have no union except a passing one in this existence. Because it's all experience. What happens then is myself, having had to live with this since I was born, this dreadful division from the beloved, whatever it is that I love, I'm always divided from, separate from. The self, by habit, starts to think that experience is all there is. I have to experience it. So it goes searching for experience that will fulfill it. And of course, every search for experience does not fulfill. It doesn't matter what you want. Do you want to experience? Say you want to experience what some drug gives you. You take the drug. You have the experience because the drug is separate from yourself. It temporarily enters your awareness or your consciousness or your mentality. You experience something, but it doesn't last. It goes. You cannot hold it because you were dependent on something outside of me. So it satisfies, experience satisfies, but it's not lasting. Say, to drink a glass of water, there is an experience. I'm thirsty. So I have a glass of water. I experience the water. The water's separate from me, and I take it into me. And as soon as I've taken it into me and consumed it into me, the experience, the water's gone, but it was still an experience. So we do with making love. We treat it as an experience. And when you make love as an experience, you will always be separate from the beloved. Because experience is always looking to get, not to give. And if you make love looking to get, which is what sex is, and what unhappiness is, you will always be frustrated. Because you can't get love. You can't get it as an experience. You can get satisfaction. Satisfaction lasts, what, 5 minutes or 5 months? Oh no, 5 weeks. That's the end of it. Then you start to want some other experience. Some new experience, because the old experience is dead. And you go from one experience to another. So there's no experience in truth. Why is this? One of the pains of the spiritual life is you start to lose the satisfaction of experience. Is this true? Each of you, if you haven't already done it, or found it, or experienced it, will, that you don't get the same experience out of your relationships as you used to. I'm not saying that they're negative. I'm just saying that the experience that goes out of it, you don't get any feedback. That's because you are detaching from experience so that you can live in the truth, which is now. Now, living in the truth, which is now, is fulfillment, not satisfaction. Satisfaction ends. Fulfillment doesn't end. So if I make love, not for experience, but because it is an act of fulfillment, then it doesn't end. Then I make love in truth. Then I am in a constant receiving, not because I'm trying to get, but because I cannot help but receive. When I give up the need of experience. Do you ever make love and it doesn't work? And do you feel frustrated or unhappy because it didn't work? Then you're looking for experience. There is no disastrous act of physical lovemaking where I come from. It is all love-making, the making of love. There is no such thing as it failing, or not connecting, or not reaching. Because if there were, I'd be looking for some experience to satisfy me, to get something. And love does not look to get. It just lives to be. And in the being, it gives, but only in the being, not in any intention. So gradually, in the divine life as I teach it, and in the spiritual life as everybody is endeavoring to live it, you must not be disturbed when you start to find that your old friendships don't give you the same satisfaction as they used to. That you don't get where you once used to delight in certain activities. You don't get the same feedback. You start to get absence of experience. Now note the word absence of experience. absence of experience is detachment from the need of experience. Therefore, in that absence there is nothing. And the mind and emotions, which are always something, are always looking for something. And so they get very frustrated and very unhappy, saying, "What's happening to me?" Says the mind and emotions, "What's happening to me? There's nothing." And then you know the truth. Because I say, yes, there is nothing in me. It is yourself that feels it is dying, losing its life. Because the self lives off experience, lives off getting, lives off winning, instead of being. Now, to hear me speak like this is an important part of your realizing what has been and is happening in your life. For each of you, to some degree as other, is having this experience from time to time. Not always, it comes and it goes, of not receiving the old delight of experience that you used to. And sooner or later, when you go through love, which is the final experience that is detached from, it is very painful. Because a woman, for instance, will say, "I'm losing my love." And there is nothing worse for a woman than to lose her love. And she says, "I'm losing my love." And she feels she's plunged into darkness because she's losing her love. But it's not true. She's losing the old experience of her love. And eventually she must detach from all experience of her love. So that it is no longer taken out of context. For experience always takes it out of context. This existence consists of experience. To have a glass of water is to take a glass of water out of context, because my heart's also beating. The flowers are also blooming. The traffic's passing by. But I take the glass of water out of context because I need that experience. For to exist means I have to have experience. So I drink the glass of water, taking the water out of context because I am making something special of that water. We can't help that because this body lives in experience. But the self then copies this body. There's nothing wrong with the body wanting water. That's a natural experience of the body's need. But the self, which is the spook inside, copies that. And it, for instance, excitement, the body doesn't get excited about anything. The self gets excited. About sex, for instance, the body never gets excited about sex. It is my self inside that gets excited about sex, that starts to come up out of the dark, come into the senses, and starts to get impatient and wanting and hard and demanding, as sex does. Demanding the experience, demanding satisfaction, demanding orgasm. That comes out, not of the body doesn't demand orgasm. The body has the experience of orgasm or it doesn't. It's not trouble, because if it needs orgasm, it will occur when it's right. But the self thinks, I'm missing out, because the sign of self is always missing out. I'm missing out. I should have an orgasm because I read about it in the ladies' magazine, that I should have one. And all the rest of it are what my girlfriends or what I've heard have said. So it is the self that enters the body, comes into the awareness, and ruins the natural harmony of my body and the earth. The water is there for my body, and my body will always endeavour to get it, the water, to fulfill its need. But if it can't get it, my body will die. My body will die beautifully and rightly, just as I see the little children in Somalia, or the mothers and the fathers walking around, gradually dying because they cannot get food or water. Not complaining, not jumping up and down and screaming, but just gradually dying. Because I tell you that the body is quite capable of just dying without making a fuss about it. But myself is not capable of dying without making a fuss about it. But it is given to the body, in most instances in our experience of civilization, to be provided with sufficient water and sufficient food and the sufficient necessities of life, which is what civilization was invented for. To put a wall around us, to enable us to be assured of receiving those things which once we had to hunt for and take our chances against the other animals to get. Now we put a wall around ourselves, we put ourselves in a cage called civilization, in which we can get all these things no problem. The only thing is that the problem, the self, we locked up with us, and it makes a problem of everything else, even though there's plenty of water. It wants something else. It wants experience. Now, there is nothing wrong with experience, as long as I do not get attached to it. So I don't want you to think that you shouldn't experience anything. You can go and do what you like. Go and fly aeroplanes, go and surf, go and raise a beautiful garden, do anything, build a home. What's wrong with that? Do what you do, do what you do. But don't be attached to it. Because the spiritual life is not being attached to your experience. If you have a lover, and you make the most beautiful love, be careful, do not be attached to the experience of that love, because the day will come when he or she will leave you or die, and then you will suffer. You must not be attached to experience. We have all become attached to experience in this bottom triangle. And we have, out of that attachment has arisen myself, which his name is attachment. And so when the experience is no longer repeated, I have withdrawal symptoms in myself. Terrible. So there's no experience in truth. And you are going through less and less feedback, satisfaction from experience. But the compensation is, there's a stillness, a joy, a rightness, an aloneness that rises up inside of me listening to these words. The only thing is it's very subtle compared with experience, which is quite coarse and dramatic. The subtlety of joy and rightness and sweetness that arises inside the body listening to these words gets overwhelmed by this self clamouring, as it were, for new experience. And this joy that arises, of course, is the name for being. For this being that I'm talking about is the deep dreamless sleep that you are going into tonight, where you shed all the burdens, where you have no existence whatever, and you are never more at peace. Another name for deep dreamless sleep is death, the thing that the self is terrified of. For the self cannot cross the line into death. Death is the death of myself. That's all. So it is terrified of death. And death is only deep dreamless sleep. The self, by repetition, has got used to the idea that it will wake up in the morning. So it is not frightened of sleep. But mention death to it. Someone in authority to say, you're dying. And if I said you're only going to go into deep dreamless sleep, that wouldn't mean a thing. Because it is attached to the awareness, to waking up all the time. The experience of waking up. It gets attached to the experience of waking up. How about, I don't need to wake up, and I don't need to not wake up? How about that? Why not let it look after itself? Then you can make love with your body without ever any failure occurring. Because the body looks after when you go to sleep or when you don't go to sleep. And it looks after when you die and when you don't die. The self has nothing to do with it. And it also looks after the making of love. If I make love with my body and not with myself, everything's fine. So what we are endeavoring to do is to actually be the simplicity, the naturalness of my body now. Just now. Nothing wrong with that, is there? But don't think, or you'll create another body, a hidden body inside, called yourself, which will be unhappy or think about the problems in your life and what you want and what you can't get. That's the hidden body of myself. Now let us go into this place again, just to reaffirm me, not myself. Right? So breathe out, please, and in 3 or 4 times into the stillness and silence. Close the eyes. Use the first mode of my intelligence, which is clarity, and look into me, inside my body, and see that there is only black and there is nothing there. You don't need your mind to tell you then. There is nothing in my experience here. Good. Then having done that, and held that as long as possible, or been that as long as possible, we use the second mode of my intelligence and feel if it is good inside of me, if it is right inside of me, or feel the well-being that is undeniably inside my body. Eventually the feeling will disappear and become clarity, as the clarity will disappear and become being. Do not allow the mind to say anything. Just be this and do not doubt, or that will be the mind. Every moment I am doing this, I am descending deeper and deeper into me. I am going beyond experience, the need of experience, and entering being, where everything is implicit. Now don't just sit there and dream off. Be responsible. I have my intelligence. I'm looking into nothing, or I'm feeling the rightness in me. I'm right there. There is no distance. I'm right here, being this. I have no movement of the mind trying to tell me what's going on. I am this. I am being. Don't allow the mind to put something on the nothing. You can listen to my words without interrupting the state of being. I am quite capable of hearing the words without being disturbed from being. I am here to remind. Don't put anything on me. This is me, my most intimate, present place. I need nothing here, for I am this. And it is right, because it is me. Remaining precisely in this place of nothing, this place of being, this place of consciousness. Open the eyes, and that will immediately bring part of the consciousness into the awareness of the world where there is everything, where everything is separate, everything's divided, everything's moving. I am then in two places at once without having any distance. I am there and I am here. There is no distance between there and here, for I am this. This is me. Do not doubt it. Do not disbelieve it. The process is in just doing it and being it. No analyzing of it. Just do it and be it. Like now. So you can be there and here at the same time. Just like now. Now we're going to have a cup of tea. So when you're having the cup of tea, practice there and being here at the same time. And enjoy the cup of tea. Thank you.